When I started college, I had no choice but to leave my hometown. Since my university was several hours away from home, I needed a boarding house where I could stay during the school year. For almost an entire day, I searched from one place to another. Some boarding houses were already full. Others were simply too expensive for my budget. Just when I was about to give up, I found a small boarding house tucked away at the end of a quiet street. The rent was surprisingly cheap, much cheaper than every other place I had visited. At first, I thought there had to be a catch, but the caretaker assured me everything was fine. He explained that the boarding house only had 3 rooms. Normally, all 3 rooms were occupied, but recently, the other tenants had already moved out after graduating. That meant I would be the only boarder staying there for the time being. I didn't think much about it. In fact, I liked the idea of having peace and quiet. So, without asking too many questions, I agreed to move in. The first day was completely normal. I unpacked my clothes, arranged my school supplies, and cleaned my room before preparing for classes the next morning. That afternoon, while buying snacks from a nearby store, I overheard several people talking about the boarding house. At first, I ignored them until I heard one sentence that caught my attention. "The real owner of that house is still missing." Curious, I listened more carefully. According to them, the owner was a 65-year-old woman who had disappeared months earlier. No one knew where she went. Some believed she ran away after constant arguments with her family. Others believed something far worse had happened. But despite the investigation, she was never found. Her case eventually grew cold. Life continued, and people slowly stopped talking about it. Although I found the story unsettling, I convinced myself it had nothing to do with me. People disappear for many reasons. There was no reason to be afraid. That night, I struggled to fall asleep. It wasn't because of the missing owner. It was because everything felt unfamiliar. The strange feeling of sleeping somewhere that wasn't home. I kept checking my phone, watching the time pass. Eventually, it became 2 o'clock in the morning. Suddenly, everything went black. The electric fan stopped. The lights went out. The entire boarding house lost power. At first, I thought it was a blackout. But after checking the electrical panel, I discovered the breaker had tripped. No matter what I did, it wouldn't turn back on. The darkness inside the house felt overwhelming. Since I was the only person staying there, the silence made everything even worse. I didn't want to remain inside, so I decided to walk to the small convenience store near the entrance of the street. It was open 24 hours. At least there were lights and people. After sitting there for several minutes, I suddenly realized something. I had forgotten my phone inside my room. I hesitated, but eventually, I forced myself to return. As I walked back toward the boarding house, I immediately froze. The room was glowing. Light was coming from inside. I stared at the window in disbelief. That couldn't be possible. The breaker was broken. There shouldn't have been any electricity. Slowly, I stepped closer and I saw someone standing inside. An old woman. She wasn't moving. She simply stood there, looking toward the window. I couldn't clearly see her face, but I could tell she was elderly. My entire body became numb. Without thinking, I turned around and ran. I didn't stop until I reached the convenience store. The owner asked why I looked terrified. Trying to hide my fear, I lied. I told him I was waiting for a friend who would pick me up before sunrise. He smiled and said nothing more. I remained inside that store until daylight finally arrived. The next morning, I returned to the boarding house. The breaker was still damaged, There was still no electricity. Everything looked exactly the way I had left it. No signs that anyone had entered. No signs that anyone had been inside during the night. I convinced myself there had to be a logical explanation. Perhaps my eyes had been playing tricks on me. Perhaps I imagined the light because I was exhausted. That explanation comforted me, at least for a while. Later that afternoon, I walked behind the boarding house to throw away my trash. That was when I saw her again. An old woman, quietly sweeping the ground. She wore old clothes. Her movements were slow. Her face looked pale, almost expressionless. Thinking she was one of the workers maintaining the property, I walked toward her. "Ma'am," I called. "I can help." She never answered. I continued walking, but just as I reached the corner, she was gone. There was nowhere she could have gone. No gate and no path. She had simply disappeared. Confused, I asked one of the neighbors if they had seen an elderly woman cleaning behind the boarding house. The neighbor looked at me strangely, then shook his head. "No, there wasn't anyone there." I asked another neighbor. The answer was exactly the same. That was when fear slowly began replacing my curiosity. That evening, I couldn't stop thinking about the missing owner, the old woman I saw, and the strange light inside my room. Over the next few nights, I began hearing faint sweeping sounds behind the house, always around 2 o'clock in the morning. Slow and steady, back and forth, every single night. But whenever I looked outside, there was no one there. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. After only a few days, I packed all of my belongings. I found another boarding house closer to the university. I never told anyone the real reason why I left. I simply said, the location wasn't convenient. Sometimes, I still ask myself the same questions. Who was the woman standing inside my room when there was no electricity? Who was cleaning behind the boarding house when no one else could see her? Several months after I moved out, I heard an update about the case. The 65-year-old owner of the boarding house was still officially listed as missing. No body was ever found. No suspect was ever arrested. And no one ever discovered what truly happened to her. To this day, the mystery remains unsolved. And sometimes, when I think back to those few nights, I can't help but wonder, was the woman I saw the missing owner, still searching for someone who would finally notice she never really left?